Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Elite City Podcast. It's going to be a shorter one today because, well, I'm the only one here. But don't click it off yet. Don't stop playing. Move on to something else in your life. We have stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about Summer Blockbuster, which was a great show. And where we're going to start with that is with Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada. Massive, obviously, massive match. Massive history between the two of them. Huge reason that AEW exists, in my opinion, is because of the Omega-Okada feud. That brought incredible attention to New Japan. That attention showed Tony Khan and network executives that AEW could be feasible, or another company could be feasible. Everything that happened with Omega and Okada directly, or at least somewhat, led to the All In show, because there was just so much attention on companies other than the US. It showed that there was a hunger for wrestling that wasn't WWE wrestling, and there was hungry for wrestling that was a different style. There was hunger for wrestling that was a different company, and without those matches, I don't know if there would be an AEW today. I know they're not the direct cause. I know the Bullet Club and the Elite were the direct cause. I know All In was the direct cause. But Kenny Omega, Kazuchika Okada were the first time I personally paid attention to wrestling outside of WWE in a long time. When Jericho went to New Japan and had that match with Kenny Omega, that's the first New Japan pay-per-view that I watched. I watched it on New Japan World, and I thought it was great. The show was incredible, and that got me into caring about New Japan and learning about Kenny Omega, more about Kenny Omega, who I only casually knew, learning about Kazuchika Okada, and then seeing those matches that they had. Those matches were, everyone knows, those matches were legendary. Yeah, it's a huge match, massive match for AEW, and I really liked how they handled it this week on Dynamite. Weird little thing, but they were both wearing suits, which I think is important. It sounds weird to say that, but I think it's important, because they both needed to be serious for this. I mean, they're both funny guys. They both have comedy aspects to their characters. I'm sure they're fun guys outside of wrestling. And that works. I mean, there's a huge place in wrestling for comedy. It's a huge place in wrestling for people who have range and are funny and can do more than one thing. You don't have to be angry and serious. You don't have to be John Moxley and be angry and serious 24/7. But this match, just with the build up to it and everything, the aura, as the kids say, around these two guys and their feud with each other, it kind of requires it to be serious. It kind of requires it to be a very intense, personal, serious feud, and both of them coming out in suits. They're all business. This isn't Kenny Omega in a t-shirt and shorts. This isn't Okada saying bitch. This is two guys who are professionals, who are at the top of their game, who are incredible wrestlers, and who care a lot about this match and what this means for both of their legacies. They both know what this means for their past, for their present, for their future. They are where they are today, in large part because of the matches they had with each other in New Japan. So treating it seriously, treating it like it's a major moment is huge, and it's important. And I like how they did it. It's just too bad that Kenny Omega was killed on this episode, and I don't know how they're going to come back from that obvious death of a character. But anyway, I kid. I liked that too. I liked the violence. I liked stepping it up immediately. I liked them going from 0 to 60 in no time at all. The addition of Don Callis and the Don Callis family was, in my opinion, great. Over the last little while, they've been a huge part of the show. They've obviously Kyle Fletcher, Takeshita, Josh Anderson. They've built up a lot of great guys. They've made themselves a threat. They've made themselves important. They've become a big part of the show. And obviously, Don Callis' history with Kenny Omega is layered and in depth, and it's going to be an important part of this story going forward. The relationship that they have between the two of them, and plus Don Callis can cut promos. And no offense to Kazuchika Okada, he's not a promo guy. Kenny Omega's not even that much. I mean, he cuts promos, but he's not that much of a promo guy. He's good, but he's not great. But Don Callis can carry the heat for this match. He can add the emotional heft to this match. He can bring up things like their past and what it means to both of them, and he's great at putting over his guy while also putting over the opponent, and him being able to sell this match is going to be huge for it. Not that it needs selling, but when you have a match of this caliber, you want it to be the best possible build you can have. And I think Don Callis is going to be able to accomplish that. I didn't expect it. I did not expect at all that Don Callis would be a part of this. I did not see Takeshita joining the Don Callis family. I'm assuming he joined the Don Callis family. But I like it. I think it's a great idea. As much as the Elite could have played a central role in this match, given obviously both Omega and Okada's connection to them, they're in another feud now, and they're doing something else, and you don't need to involve them in this, in my opinion. And Don Callis is more emotional. He has the personal connection with Kenny Omega. He has the since Omega and him split up, since he left Kenny Omega, he's had a quest to find the next Kenny Omega. And, Kyle Fletcher or Takeshita are obviously great options, and he's pushed them as great options, and they've been presented as great options. But Okada is Okada, and he could easily say things like, Kenny Omega, you're great, but you're not Kazuchika Okada, and then explain why. And it's going to be incredible. I even love that he was calling some of the action in that video package they showed. He was one of the color commentators for New Japan at the time, and so he was in that video package, so that really ties him into the story. He can explain not only his personal connection to both these wrestlers, but what he saw during those matches. He could say things like, I was there firsthand watching that match between Okada and Omega, and I saw ABC, and that's why I know Okada can win. Whatever. He's obviously going to do better than that, but he's going to add a lot to this, and this is huge. Obviously for the AEW audience, for the wrestling audience, I think that most wrestling fans know of Okada Omega. Even if they haven't seen the matches, they know that they're big matches. They know that they're incredible matches. And I'm not going to say casual fans, because I don't think the casual fans are aware. People who casually watch, WWE or whatever, I don't know if they're necessarily aware. But anyone who's paid attention to wrestling over the last 10 years is aware. So you want it to be the best possible build that you can have. You want it to be the best possible match that it can be. And involving Don Callis is going to make it sell. It's going to sell it as that huge marquee level match. Of course, since they showed that Omega Okada video package, which I thought was great. I thought it was necessary. I thought it was a great package. Really put the match into perspective and showed people their history. I assume Blasco immediately turned the show off, and will probably never watch AEW again. I assume he's left wrestling forever. And that's why he's not here today, because he's so mad that they spent that TV time on that video package. I kid because I love, but I'm not done talking about this yet. You may realize that I'm a guy who likes to talk a lot. So even though I'm here by myself, I'm going to keep talking. The new title, the look of the title, first of all, incredible. I think it looks great. I think it's a great looking belt. I love the inclusion of the Okada on one side and Omega on the other side, kind of historical nod to what made this title possible. It gives it a little something special that no other title in AEW has. Apparently they're going to keep those side plates there always. So I like it. I think that's a cool little unique thing. I like the design of the title. I will miss the design of the international title, because I thought that was also a really, really nice design. That was a great looking belt. So it's a little sad to see it leaving. But merging the titles was a great idea. We've talked a million times about it. There's too many titles, especially too many men's titles. There's confusion between the titles all the time, which title is ranked above which and whatever. So getting rid of a title was a good idea. The name is awful, in my opinion. Just calling it unified title. They should have I know that they couldn't have called it Intercontinental title, not only because of the stigma and the connection to WWE. I know there's been other Intercontinental titles and other promotions, but if they'd called it the Intercontinental title, it would have been a constant comparison to WWE. From what I read online actually recently is I think in the last few years, WWE's actually trademarked the name Intercontinental title, so they may not have even been allowed to use it, but I'm glad they didn't, even though it's an obvious name when you're merging the International and the Continental title. Intercontinental, obviously, would have been our call. But Unified title is a bad name. It should be the Unified something title, the Unified International title, the Unified even AEW Unified title sounds bad, even calling it Unified AEW title, but then it sounds like a world title, and it's not. Though from what I've seen is they're going to try to pitch it as, a 1B to the world titles 1A, which I get, but the international title was already kind of there. I think that they could have merged the two of them into a new belt, or said that they're going to merge the two belts, and then whoever won would just be like, oh, my belt was more important. So that's why we're going to keep the name. Like if Kenny Omega wins, he could go, oh, we merged both those titles in the international title, which is my title. Or Okada could have said, yeah, I don't want your international title. I want the title that I made famous. It does seem a little weird too that, especially the international title, they put a lot of work and effort into establishing the international title as a very high prestige title. The stuff with Orange Cassidy specifically made it a very high prestige title, and getting rid of it, especially for a title that's just a unified title, seems a little weird to me, but I'm not going to be a stickler for it. I mean, everything's weird until you get used to it, so we'll see what happens. But this match is going to be huge, obviously. They could have no other matches on the the All-In card other than Mox versus Hangman and Mercedes versus Tony, and it seems like Swerve and Ospreay versus the Bucks, which we will talk about in a little bit, and Okada Omega. They could just have those matches, and it would be a killer card. It would be worth the money, worth the time. And obviously they're not going to just have those matches, but if they said, hey, those are our 4 big matches, and then there's going to be 5 others, we'll tell you later. Like, I don't think it would change my enthusiasm for the show. I'm very excited for the show. I think it's going to be great. That the way they started this feud was great. The introduction of Don Callis was great. And I'm really excited for how it's going to go. Now, another thing I'm really excited for, I'm not going to take too long. This is not going to be a full hour because nobody wants to hear me for an hour. You want to hear me for the regular 56 minutes while I'm cutting people off and speaking over them. You don't want to hear a whole hour. But speaking of long things, except this was a good long thing. Oh, that's very innuendo. Anyway, speaking of great things, Swerve versus Will Ospreay. Incredible match on Dynamite. We expected an incredible match. Everyone expected an incredible match, and it was an incredible match. They just work really well together. They have personalities that work well together, wrestling styles that work well together. They can both be, aggressive. They can also be technical. They can be high flying. They can kind of do it all. They're both great wrestlers. And this was an excellent match. I liked the draw. I liked that they went to a draw. The only thing I didn't really love is that they mentioned it a whole bunch of times. Like in the last 5 minutes, they're like, there's only 5 minutes. There's only 4 minutes. I get it because that's what they would do if it was a sporting event. Like the announcers at a sporting event would not tell you how much time is left unless it's apparently soccer, but I'm not going to get into that. The announcers they would tell you how much time is left if this was an actual sporting event. So I get why they did it. But it kind of made it obvious that it was going to go to a draw as soon as they were like, there's only 2 minutes left. You're like, oh, it's going to a draw, which didn't really detract from the match, though. For me, it was a great match. I think these two are the future and present of AEW, along with Hangman. The post-match angle I thought was great. Maybe I've missed it. I don't watch absolutely everything, but maybe I missed it. I don't know exactly why the Bucks are working with the Death Riders, because I'm a little confused, people. I'm a little confused. Because the Bucks were okay with the Death Riders when the Death Riders showed up. And then the Bucks kind of were scared of them and ran away, and then came back and allied with them again. And they've kind of explained themselves as, well, we're all, AEW quote-unquote originals, and we all care about this company, and we all want it to be better, and we all want to change the world, and that's why we should be on the same side. And I know that that's why the Bucks want to be on the same side. I don't know why the Death Riders are okay with them, other than maybe they would just accept the help. Like, they're not friends, they're not allies, but the Death Riders will be like, well, if you're going to beat up Swerve or Ospreay for us, we'll accept that. Or they like the violence. Maybe they like the violence that the Bucks have. I'm not sure. I would like to see them explore that a little bit more. I do find it a little strange that the Bucks are helping out the Death Riders, and Moxley seems willing to accept their help. But then they're also talking to Hangman, being like, "Oh, you can win the world title. You can bring it back to the Elite." Because if Mox hears that, wouldn't Mox be annoyed, being like, "Oh, you guys are working with me and helping me, and we want to achieve the same thing, but you're also trying to help the guy who wants to take my title." It's not a huge sticking point. I could ignore it. It's fine. If they explain it, great. If they don't, it's not a big deal. I liked the Bucks' inclusion in this, though, because they were just like, we're going to beat up Swerve again because we know that that's what Hangman wants. And I loved Ospreay getting in the way of the kick and taking one for Swerve. I think that the way it worked out, the way you couldn't really see Ospreay until he dove in at the last second, I think was perfect. I think it worked out really well. And the backstage segment that they had later on when the Bucks were like, "Hey, Hangman, we did that for you." Hangman's like, "I never asked you to do that for me. And not only did I not ask you to do that for me, I don't want you getting involved in my business or Ospreay's business or Swerve's business." And that was like, ooh, he doesn't want them beating up Swerve. I mean, you could take it as he wants to be the one to beat up Swerve and he doesn't want anyone else to do it for him. But that's a really interesting thread that they involved there. And the fact that later Prince Nana was like, "Hey, did you hear that?" He's like, "Yeah, I heard everything." I think the moment when Swerve and Hangman and Ospreay all end up on the same side, there's going to be a moment before All In when they all end up on the same side together in the ring and they realize that they're on the same side and they have to work together and they all decide that they're going to do it, is going to be a massive moment and it's going to be huge. And the Death Riders angle has been slow and long, and we've complained about parts of it for a long time. But they've hit some big story beats really well. The time when Joe choked out Mox and they lost the trios titles was a huge moment. The moment we're going to get of Hangman and Ospreay and Swerve all getting together and unifying is going to be a huge moment. And there is a part of me that thinks, oh, maybe all of this long, slow, drawn-out Death Riders angle is going to be worth it for the payoff at the end. Because Mox is a heel. I mean, Mox is definitely a heel. He's someone that you want to see lose. His music hits, he comes out, the crowd boos. It's not like, oh, he's a cool heel. We like the way he acts. We're going to cheer because we appreciate his work. We know he's a heel, so we're like, even like Christian. Oh, we know he's a heel, but everyone's kind of laughing along with the things that he says. Like, Mox is a heel that nobody likes and nobody wants to see. And I think that there's a lot of value in that. And is it worth all the long, slow build? I don't know if it is. I doubt that it actually was, but Hangman better win at All In. And if he does, that's going to be a massive moment. Swerve and Hangman, there's going to be a moment between the two of them when they let bygones be bygones and put aside their differences and decide to, at least for now, be on the same side, is going to be a huge moment. And seems like we're going to get Swerve and Ospreay as a team against the Bucks, which is going to be an excellent match. I mean, they're all, as much as I'll knock the Bucks, they're great in big moments. They can do great matches, and Swerve and Ospreay, obviously, we saw on the show, could do great match, put on a great match. That's going to be a big match on a show filled with big matches, and I'm really excited for it. Of course, while we're talking about All In and things that I'm personally excited for, like I said, the four matches that we think we're going to get, 3 official, 1 almost official, they're all great matches. They're all things that I'm excited about. They're all dream matches, as it may be. They're the biggest matches AEW could put on at this point in time. Mercedes versus Toni Storm. This match will be great, obviously. They're incredible wrestlers. I did see some people knocking the build for it online, being like, oh, Mercedes never really does much. I think her coming out and not doing, like, supposed to be doing commentary and not doing commentary and instead sitting down and eating food has been perfect. I think that's exactly what she would do. People should be talking about me. I shouldn't be talking about them. I'm going to sit here and enjoy a nice meal. I think that's hilarious, and it fits her character, and it's great, and it works perfectly. Last week on Fyter Fest, when Toni took her meal at the end and like ate her steak, that was a moment. Like, that was really cool. and they stepped it up this week with them finally, really coming to blows, and Mercedes attacking her, Mercedes attacking Mina. I think this is going to be good. They can both do a lot of great things. We still have a lot of time before All In. So if you're one of the people who is upset about the build or think the build doesn't have what it should at this point, I understand that viewpoint, and I don't agree with it necessarily, but I understand it. But I think that they have a lot of time, and I think they have a lot of seeds planted here that are going to be grow very, very nicely. And obviously the match between the two of them, I still don't know. I think Mercedes is going to win, but the match is going to be great. The promos, Tony's going to cut a promo next week. I'm assuming that's going to be great. I really wonder if Mercedes is going to win the CMLL title, because her belt collector thing is a thing. I mean, she collected a new belt recently, I believe, and now she just stacks them up on a table, which I think is hilarious. I could see her winning the CMLL belt and adding that to her collection, but I don't know if she's going to be back in CMLL, and I don't know how prestigious the titles are to them. Like, can they go a month without having that belt in their promotion? I don't know. Particularly, I don't watch their shows, so I don't know how much of a detriment that would be to the show to have the title missing for a month. But I could also see Toni Storm costing her the title, costing her that match. That makes a lot of sense. It's just Mercedes hasn't lost a singles, like a one-on-one match yet. Like, she lost one of her titles, but it was in a three-way, and she wasn't pinned. So I don't think she's going to get pinned. I think maybe Toni Storm cost her the match by disqualification or something, but that would kind of hurt her undefeated streak. But I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, because Mercedes is a heel, so she can always claim to, I wasn't actually defeated, I haven't been pinned, I haven't submitted. She lost in a tag match, she lost in a triple threat match, now she might lose by disqualification. Technically, none of those are pins or submissions, so I could see her coming out and still claiming that she's undefeated, no one's pinned her, no one's submitted her, and just like getting heat that way. So that might be the route that they go with this. But the match is, like I said a bunch of times, everyone knows the match is going to be great. I'm excited for this one. I'm excited for where they go, and I really want to see where this goes from here. Of course, the other match, we've talked a little bit about it already. Hangman versus Moxley is going to be a moment if Mox loses. There is still a part of me that thinks maybe they're going to not have Mox lose. Maybe they're going to wait till another show. Maybe they're going to wait for Darby to get back or something like that. I think that would be a mistake. I think that everything is aligning now for Mox to lose the belt. I think the last show before All In, or the second last show before All In, Hangman and Swerve are going to put their differences aside, and it's going to be finally a unified side. AEW is unified. That's what everybody wanted out of this from the beginning, was stop caring about your petty issues and your petty squabbles. And but Darby Allin might come back before All In and join, and everyone stop putting aside their petty issues, like he was saying. Stop putting aside your petty squabbles. Stop having Orange Cassidy and Darby and all competing with each other when they could be on the same side. And everyone seems to be on the same side now, as long as Hangman and Swerve can settle their stuff, and it looks like they're going to. And having that unified side of Joe and Hangman and Swerve and Ospreay and kind of the whole, face AEW roster allied and ready to stop the Death Riders, that's going to be big. That's going to be the moment that AEW needs to end this Death Riders title reign. Finally, everyone's unified. It's taken a long time. They've all had their petty squabbles over the however long. They've all had their personal issues. They've cared more about personal gain and personal issues than they have unifying. And now they're all unified, and everyone's together, and everyone's going to fight. So Hangman should win. And if he doesn't, I think that's a huge mistake, especially if it's going to be the last match of the card. I'm not sure if it's going to be the last match of the card. They might close with Omega versus Okada, because how do you follow? I mean, Omega and Okada isn't 2017, it's 2025, so expecting a 2017 level match from the two of them is probably unfair, especially with Kenny's mental, health problems, especially with everyone, being older. But being older also adds, what it takes away from you in physical ability. It adds mental ability and experience. So, their match could blow the roof off the place. I think there's a roof on the place. So yeah, would they close with that? I don't know. If they're going to close with Hangman versus Mox, though, Hangman needs to win, and that needs to be the end of the show. Hangman victorious, confetti, fireworks, and AEW is victorious. I like it so much more that it's not like the soul of AEW. They're not too meta into themselves. They're just like, these guys are bad. They're hurting the company. They're attacking people. They're hiding the title. They're doing bad things. We need to stop these bad guys from doing bad things. And they're so bad and they're so powerful that the only way to do that is for all of us to get on the same page and fight them. This isn't about rah-rah, AEW flag. This is just like, we need to get rid of these guys. And the only way that we can get rid of these guys is if we put all of our stuff aside and we fight them as one force. I think that's a much more powerful angle. I think that's a much better story. And I think that's why it's clicking more now than it did, however many months ago. Just because the focus is the same, everyone allying together to stop the Death Riders, but they've changed why they're allying together to stop the Death Riders. And I think that really matters. Before it was, Mox has this weird idea of what he wants to change AEW into, and they're disappointing him. And AEW has to show that, no, the good guys have to show that, no, we are the soul of AEW. You're not the soul. Like, that was never really did it for me. But the Death Riders just being this mean, evil force that hurts people and causes chaos and stole the title and put it in a briefcase. And they need to be stopped just because they're bad. And the only way to stop them is to get together is a great angle. And it's a great feud at this point. I think it's only going to get better. And I thought it was really clever how they had, Hangman obviously was attacked early on in the show. They showed the Death Riders going after him when he walked in, or following him when he walked in. So that explains why he didn't come out and help Ospreay when Ospreay was being beaten up. And then they had Ospreay and Swerve in the back. Ospreay was injured, Swerve was with him, and that explains why they weren't the ones to come out and help Hangman, why Ops did it instead. So they really explained that really well, and it worked out perfectly for me. And I think that I have very high hopes for this match and the hopeful conclusion of the Death Riders angle. And on that note, I'm going to wrap things up here. Thanks for listening to me. I know it's just me this week, so it's always a little more awkward to just have a single person doing a podcast and not have a bunch of people. I obviously love talking. I love hearing the sound of my own voice, but I don't assume that feeling is mutual or universal. So thanks for listening. Hopefully everyone's back pretty soon and we can have a lengthier discussion about some of these things, because AEW is doing a really great series of shows. The 4-hour shows were long. I watched them over 2 days, and the second half of both of them, the Collision shows, were obviously Collision, which is, say what you want, it's not the A show. So the Dynamite halves of those shows were always better, but they were great. The shows were great. The inclusion of CMLL wrestlers has been really interesting. The next AEW show coming up, next Dynamite show, is in Mexico, Grand Slam Mexico. So that's going to be really cool to have them in Mexico in a historic arena, have some good mix of AEW talent and CMLL talent. I really like how they've done it. It's not like they're all not exhibition matches. There's reasons for a lot of these matches, and they've built some storylines and personal grudges between guys like MJF and the CMLL roster. MJF and Mystico is going to be great. So I like how they've done it. I'm excited for that show. I think it's going to be a really good show. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited for the road to All In. There's been so many great things AEW has done over the last little while. I don't want to just sit here and gush. Everything has negatives, obviously, but the show's been great. And I'm very excited. Thanks again so much for listening. You know where to find us. You can follow us on social media, Blue Sky, Instagram, Mastodon, Threads. We're at Elite City Pod or Elite City Pod Plus, whatever you need to use for any of those. If you search for Elite City Pod in any of those things, we're going to show up. You can find us at elitecitypod.com. All of our episodes, all of our links, everything you need to know. And we're on YouTube, also at Elite City Pod. So if you get your podcasts on YouTube, make sure to check us out there. No matter how you listen to us, like, share, subscribe, comment, rate, hit notifications, whatever platform you're on. Make sure you do all those things. That helps us get the word out there, and it just makes us feel good and happy. And I know that is a weird thing to say, but we love doing these shows, and I can't wait for everyone else to come back. and have our regular lineup again. But thanks so much, and we'll be back next week. Later.